Hey, how you doing? Welcome to another video. This one is from another comment. This person asked, she says she doesn't really like counting the days since she stopped drinking alcohol because she likes to focus on the steps instead. And should she really count the days? I think counting the days in the beginning has, I think from my perspective anyway, it's got a tremendous value attached to it. You know, motivation is key, especially earlier on in this journey. You know, there's a lot of discomfort, there's a lot of craving and change, and you really need to cope with what you can. But having said that, you know, everyone's got different coping skills, everyone's got different ways of doing this. And you have to personally do the best that you can with what you've got, right? In the early days, I think counting those days gives you a sign of progress, if you like. It's a simple marking that you're moving away from alcohol. Look, when you're stopping drinking alcohol, the actual act of stopping drinking alcohol is completed on day one. You know, if you're doing something like losing weight or putting on muscle, or you're studying for an exam or something like that, you're learning a new job, there's plenty of ways that you can mark your progress, that you can track your progress, right? Stand on the scale if you're losing weight, you can measure your muscles, or there's a lot of things that you can do that will give you an idea of how much you're progressing with life. How do you do that when you're stopping doing something? You know, like I said, on day one, if you never drink again, you've already achieved that goal. Right? That's why we say stop the flow, right? You do that on day one. Then you do the work. That's where all the progress comes from. But it's going to be difficult in the beginning because you're just coping with the loss, if you like. You're coping with, it's almost like you're going through a little bit of a grieving process, right? You're dealing with the discomfort of not having alcohol as a crutch anymore. You're going through all of this conflict, all the ambiguity. You know, there's a part of you that wants to go back to the drinking. There's part of you that really wants to stay away from it. But this is a conflict that is playing out inside your head in real time. So I think counting the days is a really good way of recognizing that you're making progress. I'm a big fan of a blank calendar, no dates on it. Just, I generally get one of these big writing pads, an artist sketch pad sort of a thing, and I'll divide it into the 30 days and I'll mark it off from there. So there's no dates on it, just like day one, just a little penciled day one in the corner of the box, day two, day three, day four, and then every day I'll get a big red marker and mark off the days like that. So day one is a big red marker day, day two, it's just very visual, and it kind of forms a chain that you don't want to break. And I do this every time. If I have a 30-day challenge or a 60-day challenge, 90-day challenge, I'll do the same thing. You know, I'll just make the calendar bigger than it is. So I think later on, once you get past that 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, it's not so anymore, right? You've got some momentum behind you. But I do think that celebrating milestones is super important. That first month milestone is a big one. You know, when you get to your first month alcohol-free, then 3 months after that I think is a good one to aim for, 6 months. But that first year, something in the human psyche that really appreciates and can get behind that first year milestone, right? So use an app in that case to remind yourself, to reward yourself on those dates. I mean, you can reward yourself every month that you go by. I think you should do that. But for those big ones, plan something for yourself. Use a calendar, like Google Calendar or something like that, to set yourself a notification, a reminder of, yeah, you're getting to that date, it's coming up, and this is where we're going. Right, so by the way, if you're looking for help on this journey, this is our little plug. If you want to get yourself unplugged from this delusion, stop the flow of alcohol, do the work that you need to do and move on to better things in your life, we've got our beginners guide. It's still free in the link down below. It's a short primer course. It's just an introduction really to what we have to offer on the main course. If you want more structured, more comprehensive help from me, you might consider joining us on the Habits V2 program. As I said before, this is where I spend most of my time. It's where I spend most of my energies these days. Really, we've got a great community of people over there. We do videos. We've got a masterclass of videos that runs from preparation, goes through, helps you with all the coping stuff, but it also, we're moving you through the habits, so we're destroying and getting rid of the habits that you don't need and building the habits that you do need to get to that successful life. I mean, our goal in this thing is always to get you to that first year as best, living that best possible life that you can live within that year, and looking forward to that second year with just I remember getting to that first year myself, and it was just such an amazing experience. It was fearful, but there you go. Anyway, the link is in the description below if you're interested. Plug over. So when you go back to the comment, I mean, you're right, Jenny. This is a step-by-step forward process. Right from the beginning, I didn't want to focus my mind on what I was leaving behind. I think, if you start saying to yourself things like, well, it's a day since I stopped drinking, or 2 days since I stopped drinking alcohol, you're focusing on the wrong things. I didn't want to focus on what I perceived I was missing out on, that conflict. There is a conflict in your mind, and the part of that conflict that wins is the part that you feed. So if you feed the alcohol part of it, then that's going to win, Instead, I wanted to focus on what I was gaining out of my life, gaining out of this decision to stop drinking alcohol. So I always called it my journey from the beginning. It's always been my journey. Just now I'm making strides forwards instead of taking so many steps backwards in my life. So that was the way it felt. So you also have to look at it more of a journey towards something rather than away from alcohol. Think about it from the perspective of, it's been 10 days since you started on the journey, or it's been 10 days since you unplugged from the old delusion, since you started plugging into the real you, or whatever it is that you want, but focus on what you're doing forwards. You can also count forwards in the days, so you can say, well, 29 days until I get to my first month, 28 days until I get to my first month unplugged from alcohol, right? I think counting the days is just, sometimes it's a part of life when you're looking forward to doing something. We count the days. What's destructive about this is when you focus your attention on the wrong things. Most people don't like counting the days because they feel it's X number of days before, since they've stopped drinking alcohol, like I said earlier, and that's the destructive part, because you're always focused on the alcohol part. At the beginning of my journey, I suppose for about 3 or 4 months after I unplugged, I met this woman who it was 27 years since she stopped drinking, And look, it's been 10 years since I changed my life, but you'll never hear me saying it's 10 years since I got sober or I stopped drinking, unless it's for a video. I'm speaking specifically to people who are still plugged into that drinking, thinking. But the worst thing about this woman's life was that 27 years after she stopped drinking alcohol, she was still going to AA meetings. I've spoken about this before, so you probably heard me talking about this, but I'm still shocked at that, it doesn't compute with me, that something like that can happen, that a person can get so sucked into something else in life, and it's like a second addiction, The most important things for me are my time and energy, and how I spend that time and energy is important. The most important things for me are my family, my friends, and how I spend my time with those people. I need to obviously earn a living in order to do the things that I want to do in life, but I managed to build a thing that I'm earning a living which I thoroughly enjoy doing, helping people here on YouTube or in the program. Yes, we have people who are still with us for years after they've unplugged from alcohol, but as I said, They're not there. They're not there for the purpose of still stopping drinking alcohol. They've moved on from that. You know, what we teach is all about growth more than anything else, and I love that. Every day, each of us gets a little bit wiser. We grow a little bit. You know, we give back a little bit. You know, we're something a little bit better. A little bit better than we were yesterday, right? We're moving forwards, we're moving towards being the best versions of ourselves. You know, even that idea has changed so much for me. And why wouldn't it? You know, it's just something that, you know, what is the best version of yourself when you stop drinking alcohol? When you're just coming out of the cloud, when you haven't got rid of the cloud, when you're still stuck in that drinking, thinking mentality, when you're still stuck in that ambiguity and the conflict. What does it mean to be the best version of yourself? You know, as you change, you change. You know, but your ideas change. You change how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world. You alter your values a little bit every day. You know, you strengthen these values, you strengthen your principles. You know, whatever those principles are, becoming a better parent, becoming a better son or daughter, or brother or sister, becoming a better friend, becoming a better leader. You know, it's sometimes hard to accept that I lived any other way. You know, when I feel my life now, when you're going through your life in this sense, and you look back at those things, it's like, how did I ever think that way? How did I ever behave that way? It just becomes so alien to who you are and what you're doing. Right? But it's just a part of my life. I did do that. And the changes that have happened to me in those intervening years, in all the years that have gone by, a decade, they've all come about because I started counting those days. You know, that was my only tool that I had in my pocket. I mean, one of the only tools that was helping me in the journey was to be able to get through the day. I got through the day by walking. I got through the day by thinking about where I was, what I was doing. You know, a lot of the time when I was just starting out, those thoughts were very incoherent, or they didn't make sense, or I was trying to make sense of things. But you know, as you go forwards in this, then you learn. But like I said, at the end of the day, putting that cross on the board and saying, right, another day under my belt. You know, it's a very simple tool, but I'm very grateful for it. So, you know, if that's what you've got, you know, use it in the beginning, because it will help you. You know, don't carry on using the counting the days for 27 years, you know what I mean? I mean, by all means, you can get an app these days that will tell you when you've hit 1,000 days or 2,000 days. But you should also look at it, always look at it from the perspective of, this is 1,000 days since I copped onto myself. It's 1,000 days since I started on this new journey. It's 1,000 days since, you know, I've really started to push myself forward. I'll leave it there. Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Onwards and upwards, eh? Have a good one.